Welcome back to Tears for Fears. I'm your host, Megan Shoup. You can follow me on Twitter at Megs08DFS, and I can't believe this is the last Tears episode of the season. I have literal tears, but I am so grateful and I've had so much fun this season. So I have to thank Pat Mayo and the Mayo Media Network for giving me the opportunity to talk about Tears with you all every week. And thank you guys so much for joining me. So like each week, please be sure to like this episode, subscribe to the Mayo Media Network, and check out our sponsors at Run the Sims to help you make your Tears decisions too. So let's end this season on a high note, go tier by tier, and find our core plays. First, let's take a look back at last week's winning lineup because I want to talk about more short slate strategy. Last week, I talked about how it's okay to team stack and game stack and onslaught more in short slate tiers. But there's another thing to keep in mind. Every tier, the high score, it's all relative to that tier, right? So while the Chiefs-Bills game was an absolute shootout, there were no Bills in the winning lineup and 2 Chiefs. And in a game that ended 19-16, the Bengals-Titans, there were 3 players from that game. Why? Because it was all relative to that tier. So you have to keep that in mind. This week, of course, I have more interest in the Chiefs-Bengals game. And I will do lineups where I will have onslaughts or major game stacks of that game. But just keep in mind as you're going through to not force it, because again, it's all relative to that tier. So now let's jump right in. In Tier 1, we have the 4 quarterbacks with Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow, and Jimmy Garoppolo. And I'll be fading Jimmy Garoppolo here. If Jimmy has the most points in this tier, I should just go ahead and make all the rest of my picks blindfolded. But in all seriousness, I'll be rotating through Stafford, Burrow, and Mahomes. I love them all. But in order, I'll probably have Stafford, then a little more Burrow, and then the most of Mahomes. Because let's be honest, like Mahomes puts the team on his back. If he runs, if he needs to run, he's going to. He is back to the Patrick Mahomes that we all know and love. So with that said, Patrick Mahomes is my Tier 1 play. In Tier 2, we have the fantasy studs again with Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Jamar Chase, and Tyreek Hill. And in this tier, I'm just going to sprinkle in some Deebo Samuel. Can he break the slate? Of course. But I like the floor ceiling combos for the other guys a little more. So I'm going to be rotating through Hill, Chase, and Kupp. And you know I love the Bengals-Chiefs game, so I do want a lot of exposure to both Hill and Chase. Last time we saw this game, Chase absolutely went nuclear. But my favorite play is the guy with the safest and highest floor ceiling combo, and we know that's Cooper Kupp. So Cooper Kupp is my Tier 2 play. In Tier 3, we have Joe Mixon, Travis Kelce, Eli Mitchell, and T. Higgins. And I'll be fading Mitchell here. I'm betting that they'll be playing from behind, and he really doesn't have much of a role in the passing game. And against that tough Rams defense, I don't trust him to get there on volume. With Joe Mixon, I'll sprinkle him in. He hasn't been as efficient lately, but he really does get the high-value touches. So I'll have a little bit of him. But my favorite plays are Travis Kelce and T. Higgins. They're both in great spots in that high total game. So I went over to Run the Sims and their rangefinder tool, and I put in Travis Kelce and T. Higgins. And as you can see, Kelce does have a slightly higher win rate. So Travis Kelce is my Tier 3 play. In Tier 4, we have George Kittle, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Odell Beckham Jr., Cam Akers, and Jerick McKinnon. I first have to mention that both the Chiefs and Rams may have a more crowded backfield situation. It looks like Darrell Williams is returning for the Chiefs, and there's a possibility that Darrell Henderson is returning for the Rams. Now, while Akers had 2 fumbles last week, he still looked explosive, so I still think he'll be the lead back for LA. And with McKinnon, he looked awesome too, and I think he will definitely have more of the pass-catching role for the Chiefs. So I like both of them. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he doesn't have as much of a pass-catching role, and therefore his floor makes me nervous, and I think he'd have to get 2 touchdowns possibly to really win this tier. So I don't have much interest there. So I'm going to rotate through McKinnon, Akers, Beckham, and Kittle. But I have to say, my favorite by far, the best floor ceiling combo is Beckham. He has looked amazing. Seems like week by week, he looks better and more comfortable. And I know you're probably thinking, well, you've got 2 pass catchers if Kupp is your favorite play. Again, I'll have plenty of lineups with just Kupp or just Beckham. But again, it's all relative to the tier, kind of what I mentioned at the beginning. So again, it's all relative to who is the highest score in that tier. So I won't get too focused on that. And Odell Beckham Jr. is my Tier 4 play. In Tier 5, we have Tyler Boyd, Brandon Ayuk, Tyler Higbee, Van Jefferson, CJ Uzoma, Mecole Hardman, and Byron Pringle. Now in this tier, you don't have a whole lot of 100-yard equity. You're really looking for receptions and, of course, touchdowns. So my favorite plays in this tier are Boyd, Uzoma, Pringle, and Higbee. Between those, I'd say I feel the safest floor ceiling combo with Boyd and Pringle. So I went over to run the Sims to the rangefinder tool to help me decide, and it's pretty close. But Boyd does have the slightly higher win rate. Now, I know he burned us last week, but we're going back to the well, and Tyler Boyd is my tier 5 play. In tier 6, we have Darrell Williams, Sony Michel, Jawan Jennings, Samaje Perine, Demarcus Robinson, Kyle Juszczyk, Jermichael Hasty, and Kendall Blanton. Now, for this tier, I'm pretty much fading Perine, Juszczyk, Hasty, and Blanton because really there you're playing for either an injury or an absolutely fluky touchdown. With Darrell Williams, Sony Michel, I may take a couple shots, but again, I think they're in a very crowded backfield situation, and I like the other running backs for their teams much better. So it may take a couple shots there. Demarcus Robinson, he feels like he's basically just running wind sprints out there most of the time, but again, it's all relative to this tier, right? So I will take some shots with Demarcus Robinson. But my favorite play by far in this tier is Jennings. I mean, he and Robinson are the ones that are out there the most running routes. So that's why I feel the best about those two. But Jennings, the last time these two played, got a lot of targets, and I think he definitely is in the best spot to be the high scorer in this tier. So Jennings is my tier 6 play. That'll do it for this week's Tiers for Fears. Let me know in the comments section what data you would like me to pull about the Tiers contest. I want to pull data this offseason to really continue to find edges for Tiers. Now, I am very sad that Tiers is coming to an end this season, but I'm very grateful. So thank you again to Pat Mayo and the Mayo Media Network. Thank you to our amazing sponsors, Run the Sims, and thank you so much to you all for joining me every week. I really, truly appreciate it. Again, before you get out of here, be sure to like this episode, subscribe to the Mayo Media Network, check out Run the Sims, and then go over to fanspeak.com and check out my Tiers simulator. I have these core plays built in, so it'll help give you some lineup suggestions here for the conference playoffs. So let's end the season on a high note and let's go make some money.